Take a good look, you worthless piece of human excrement. This is the tainted blade of the Pale Knight, straight from the abyssal lair. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And you are a vicious snowflake. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Mandy.
Mandy, she seems nice.
I mean, if Barry Manilow has anything to say about it, she came and she gave without taking.
Without taking.
And then like 12 other verses of "Oh, Mandy." But we're not talking about that classical piece of musical excellence here. We're talking about something a little different.
Now, we were going to talk about this last week, but we couldn't get to the theater. But then something miraculous happened this week, which made our lives so much easier and so much better, which was that Mandy got released on iTunes simultaneously to being in a theater. So if you haven't seen the movie at this point, it is available for you for $6.99 rental in the United States.
Yes.
On iTunes. Oh, and it'll probably be available on Google Play and other platforms as well.
Sure. It was on Prime, I think, as well. That's where, I got it as well. But it was also $6.99. Let's talk about $6.99
versus, what is it, $13 to go to the movie?
I mean, out of New York City, yes.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair price for a current release film.
Yeah.
For your home. I think I'm worried, and I was worried for a while that when this sort of thing started happening, that it would start being like $15, and it's like, ugh.
Right.
And I don't think that's happening yet, but you never know.
Yeah, look, the movies are expensive, which is why, again, coming back to that movie pass conversation we've been having, I'm hoping that something comes in the place of movie pass, and there is, it's called Cinemania?
Cinnamon buns?
Cinnamon buns? No, it's called Cinemia?
Sonoma County.
Cinemia. Yeah, that's
what is it?
It's a monthly subscription plan that is exactly like Movie Pass, but they have a more secure plan, which means if you wanted to watch, their price is $29.99 a month for a movie, for 30 tickets, and that's basically any movie. You can go every day to the movies. But if you just want 3 movie tickets per month, it's $18.
Okay.
And there's no blackout. The $18 version includes IMAX, 3D, and everything, and you can do 3 movies a month.
Oh.
No, any movie theater. If you just want basically the same version as Movie Pass, which is 3 movie tickets a month, again, any theater, no blackout, it's $9.99, which is the same price as Movie Pass. And unlike Movie Pass, which has that sort of like, you can go to these 3 movies, you can go to any movie.
Right. And can you reserve your tickets online?
I believe so.
Because if you can, then that beats the AMC one. Because I was this close to doing the AMC one because as the denizens of Astoria, New York know, our movie theater is not an AMC, and but the one I like to go to in Lincoln Center, or not Lincoln Center,
AMC Link,
Lincoln Center, Lincoln Square, up on 68th, I think, in Manhattan. That is an AMC, and it's a decent trek from here, but it's not terrible. And
they
I was
have
like,
one of the most they have a true IMAX theater, which is what I love about that place.
So I was going to get the AMC one and just start going there exclusively, which is a bit of a pain.
The risk you have with Cinemia, and I'm going to spell it out for just our listeners, it's Sinemia. The risk you have is that it is an independent company like Movie Pass, which we've seen sort of a tumultuous run with Movie Pass. So there could be, some risk of it going under or not being able to maintain that pricing, as we saw happen with Movie Pass.
Right.
But their CEO has assured the public that won't happen. They said that they've tested these prices and done extrapolation models to make sure that they can, hold on to that user base. Who knows?
The only reason I trust that, honestly, is because they can look at how Movie Pass failed and be like, oh.
We're not doing that.
Yeah. Now, granted, that doesn't mean that their plan won't fail, but it means that one particular plan they know will fail and they know how to counteract.
Okay, so back to that original point that you made about the $6.99 for a movie theater. There is this alternative thing called the rich person's movie plan. Have you heard about this?
No. So I don't think I fall into that financial category.
It doesn't apply to either of us. Yeah. But basically, if you're in the uber wealthy, you can have a system installed in your home, which allows you to have current release movies, so movies that are playing in a theater right now.
No.
Streamed to your home directly.
Fuck no.
And it's the I don't actually remember what the initial prices were, but there's something like each movie will cost you like $100 to $250 or something like that. But it's a movie that's playing in a theater at that current moment, and you can watch it and you can bring friends over. And I think there was a plan. I think Sean Parker, Facebook one of the early Facebook funders and Napster guy, was trying to take that idea, because that is available for rich people, and it's to bring it sort of more home market. And I think he got the price down to like $50 a movie, but it uses like a really high end encryption. It basically uses, as far as I understand, almost the same encryption that they use to send movies to movie theaters.
Right. Which is not uncrackable.
No, it's not uncrackable, but it's very, like, these aren't formats that you can distribute around. And so the cases that I've heard of people doing that are, for example, like I believe Peter Jackson in New Zealand has one of these, so that he doesn't want to go to the movie theater. He would be inundated if he did, so he has this at his home.
Slowly, society is turning into a thing where I could just go buy up in mid-level, let's say New Hampshire, away from everybody.
Yeah.
I could go and I could, slowly but surely, all of my loves are slowly becoming something I could put anywhere on the planet.
Yeah.
It's just got to get that price down.
Yeah. So it's happening. And I
wow.
Think, so I'm not sure what the system is called. If you know what that system is called, write us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter at onlymoviepod. But tell us what you think of this idea. Now, I think this is great for a film, like what we experienced, for example, which is the $6.99 to rent the movie on iTunes while it's simultaneously playing in the theater. I think that's a great option for a film like Mandy, which is only playing in like 1 or 2 theaters in New York City.
Which, think about where else that means it's not going much of anywhere, like outside of major metropolitan areas. You're not going to be able to really see this thing.
Yeah, but the other film that I think it would benefit from this is a film called Thunder Road, which is coming out shortly. Thunder Road was initially a short film, and it got adapted into a feature film, and they kickstarted the movie. It won a bunch. The short film won a bunch of awards. The feature film has won a bunch of awards. And there's been a story floating around, I believe, on Slash Film and a couple other places this week, about how the fact that they've made their money back through online distribution. So the film cost $200,000. It made its money back. I hear the film is fantastic, so it's really worth checking out. It comes out simultaneously in the theater and on iTunes on the same day. So I like that model, and I think it's really well suited to films like
these particular ones.
Yeah, like these two. Like, I'm looking at the what's available on Cinemania, though, and I don't think a film like Venom really. I mean, if Venom was available here's the thing, though. If Venom was available for $6.99 at home, I would rent it. Because it'll be like, oh, I don't need to go to the movies. Now, you and I have a different scenario again, which is like, so we're not rich people, but we have something that kind of is closer in emulation. We have like the emulation box.
We have the emulator of what a well-off person's situation for film watching would be.
Which is that we've both invested in projectors for our home apartments, and it means that we get big screen experiences at home.
Granted, it's still 1080p. It's still older stuff, but it's a big screen.
It's a big screen. It looks great. There has to be real clear reasons for me to see a movie in a movie theater. And I feel like with a film like Mandy, I got the experience of like being able to see it on a big screen. Now, what I didn't get was the crowd experience. So all of that,
the crowd experience for Mandy, I imagine, would be interesting, and we can get into that.
I would love a company to simulate the crowd experience. Like in your speaker, you'd have someone like talking or
phones
texting.
going off.
Yeah,
also, you need that 4DX experience. You need someone kicking the back of your seats. You need a piston sort of just hitting the back of your couch.
I've never done that, but I don't.
4DX is literally the bastardization of all things film. Like, I won't go on a high horse often, but 4DX is the most useless thing.
Worse than smell-o-vision?
It has smell-o-vision.
Oh, does it?
It shoots scents at you, but they're not like real scents. I feel like the only chemical scent you can actually get into the air from a non-natural place is, for some reason, buttered popcorn, burning, and farts. I feel like nothing, and like maybe flowers or like a potpourri.
My dad used to own a candy store, and there was a licorice spray. So
how many businesses does your family Pickle Farm?
You remember Pickle Farm?
Scent store.
Pickle Farm is extended family. It's not
is there any other niche market that the Dowd family has given the monopoly upon?
There was a point at which we were going to get a video store, And I was that was like the most exciting time in my life. I was like, we're gonna get a video. Because I don't know about you. I've always wanted to work at a video store. I've applied for jobs at video store and never got them. And I was like, I am the perfect person, or maybe I am the worst person to work at a video store.
Fun fact: same person.
Right.
It's the same person. Both the perfect person and the worst person is the same person to work at a video store. I, too, never worked at a video store. I also never worked at a movie theater. However, the Premiere 8 in Manchester, New Hampshire is since long dead.
Yeah.
All of my friends worked there, and some of them were the managers. And then we would just sort of like,
power.
Oh, my God, so much power. We'd go there late nights. The movie that was premiering, say, Friday, they'd have to, back then, put together on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and then we just watch screenings after it closed to make sure the print was good.
Yeah, no, they have to do that.
I know,
yeah,
but they would invite us over, and I didn't drink at the time, but like people were drinking and doing whatever and having sex probably up in the projection booth and whatever. It's fine.
I heard the other thing is you could play video games on the big screen.
You couldn't at this theater because they didn't. This was even before like digital projection at all. Right, like they didn't even have the one they wheel out to put there and then wheel away to actually have the film one. Like this was before all that.
Right.
So we never got to play any like Halo.
Old. We're super
we are old.
Yeah.
But now
we're talking about video stores. It's like Blockbuster doesn't even exist anymore. And that's what we want.
I'm waiting for the full 360, not to be confused with our camera experience we're having right now. By the way, if you're listening to this and you don't know what we're talking about, we have a 360-degree camera going. You can check us out on our Facebook page or search Only Movie Podcast on YouTube to see what this whole weird thing looks like.
And I swear we will add some little bonus content in there so you can kind of see things.
We have one up also before this. We're just doing some tests. We're trying to see what's up. So if you like that, let us know. But I'm waiting for the whole 360 movement of like literally coming back and having like vintage stores where you have to go rent physical media as a niche.
Oh, I think... Yeah, I could see that. I could see like in Williamsburg, like a DVD.
Videology in Williamsburg. Have you been there?
Yeah, I've been there.
So that's, I mean, it's a bar and a store you can rent DVDs from.
But the rental part is like you have to like look on a list and then someone brings it out to you. It's not like you go and browse the
Right. They've made it slightly more efficient.
I love video stores. I love browsing through I like whenever if I pass a Barnes and Noble, that's what I'm doing. I'm going in the bar. I could like when we go shopping for the day or something like that, and my wife is shopping, and if I see a Barnes and Noble, that's my man couch. I will go to the Barnes and Noble and hang out there.
Is that the last vestige of searching for physical media? I mean, Best Buy, sure, but even I feel like Best Buy and all like that is sort of like relegated to like three tiny racks that are like a circle.
Right. And the thing I love there is scrounging through the bargain bin.
Oh, the $5 bin.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Walmart, baby.
Oh yeah, I was in a town. I went for a vacation. I was in a town with a Walmart, and I was like, I gotta stop here. I gotta check it out.
But it is always a million copies of the same 4 films, 2 of which are guaranteed to be the 14th and 15th Air Bud sequel.
Either that, or it's guaranteed to star the star of this movie, Nicolas Cage. See, we finally brought it back. But yes, Nicolas Cage is likely to be in the bargain basement of your local Walmart in some way. Because I was looking at Nicolas Cage's come on, his filmography, and the dude makes a lot of movies.
Look, you got to pay back that tax debt.
Is that what he's doing?
I don't know. I heard he was in a lot of debt. Again, this is me just literally talking shit. I have no idea. Maybe he's not. Maybe he just loves making movies, and that's totally cool too. I have a super friend that's a super fan.
Is it one of the Wonder Twins?
Stephanie Marchetti, who has actually been on our X-Men Apocalypse podcast way back in the day. I wasn't on that. You were on. That was we did a distant satellite show. In Fitchburg, Massachusetts. One of my college friends, Stephanie Marchetti, is, dear God, the largest Nick Cage fan I've ever seen, and unironic.
Right,
Nick Cage fan, and that's something I feel that is hard to pull off, and she does with flying colors.
Really, hey, ask her if she's seen Left Behind.
Left Behind. I'll just tell you right now, she has. Like, there's no way she hasn't. I think that movie
got like a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Doesn't matter. Listen, if you'd like to tell us what your favorite Nick Cage movie is, you can email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at onlymoviepod. Also, if you want to leave maybe a 5-star review on iTunes, also telling us what your favorite Nick Cage movie is, we'll read that too. I mean, we'll just take any venue you'd like.
Okay, setting it off then, what is your favorite Nick Cage movie?
Oh no!
Yep, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck in it now.
Okay, instantly, Con Air.
Of course.
comes to mind.
Okay.
But there has to be something else.
Adaptation?
It's good. It's good.
I think The Rock?
I haven't watched
Face Off?
I haven't watched The Rock recently. Face Off is just too funny at this point. I think Con Air might honestly be my
Vampire's Kiss?
No. I think my favorite Nick Cage movie is Con Air.
I think mine might be Adaptation.
You're looking at the list?
I'm looking at the list. There's so many. I remember Kiss of Death when I was younger. I used to love it. Oh, Raising Arizona.
Great. You know what else was surprisingly fun, and I was kind of hoping Mandy would be a little bit akin to, but it wasn't, is Drive Angry.
Okay, I haven't seen Drive.
So Drive Angry is...
He's from hell, right? In Drive Angry?
He's come back from hell to rescue his granddaughter, I think.
Is it the four-wheel version of Ghost Rider?
It's the knockoff, like, drugstsurfer action figure brand of Ghost Rider.
Okay.
So like it'd be like Spectral Surfer or some like nonsense. Like it's Nick Cage comes back from hell and has to kill a bunch of gangsters that like his granddaughter is sort of in trouble with. And it's just the right amount of pulp and offensive cheese almost that you're just sort of like, okay, because they still are having fun with it.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a great movie. I'm saying if I'm in the mood for like a real B pulpy nonsense bullshit movie that has some decent action in it, like it was pretty good.
So I mean, we're going to talk about Mandy in a second, but Nicolas Cage, I think, is someone that, for example, I went to see There Will Be Blood a couple of weeks ago with a friend of the show, Nicholas Parker. We went to see it at the Lincoln Center, and they had a live orchestra performance.
Whose milkshake was it?
It was funny. We met.
Did you get milkshakes?
Greg Baldwin was there.
You fucks.
I really wanted a milkshake. Greg Baldwin was there, but we suggested that what would be amazing is if because he was up in the upper balcony.
Okay.
Is to like extend a straw out slowly during the screening, and then like at the end of the movie, drink our milkshake.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. But I was thinking about actors who never phone it in, no matter what movie they're in. And I think Nick Cage, is one of those guys that just never phones it in. And the reason I brought up There Will Be Blood, I was like, I was thinking about what other actor could play Daniel Day-Lewis's character, Daniel Plainview, in that movie.
Sure.
And to me, Nicolas Cage would be the guy. It would be the strangest performance. It would be weird, but Daniel Day-Lewis's performance is strange anyway. But I never feel like Nick Cage phones it in. Even in the most ridiculous films like Face Off, like Con Air, like The Rock, he never phones it in. Yeah. And I think even in the, like these, what's happened to him is he's been doing a lot of VOD films. I don't know, straight to video films.
I mean, we were talking about, that's where a lot of this stuff is kind of going anyway. So if you're looking for pure numerical numbers of work, you're going to hit a couple of those.
But I still feel like the interesting thing about him is there's a video piece right now that Vanity Fair did this week on him. They've been doing these videos for a while now where they talk to actors about their great roles in their career. And I feel like the thing with Nick Cage is when you listen to him speak, you get the sense that he loves movies.
Yes.
Like he's a really passionate cinephile. Like he loves movies. He knows history of movies. He knows a lot about the movie making business and the history of performance and acting as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like what he's doing isn't necessarily, and this is pure speculation, is that he's just trying different directors, like different young filmmakers, and seeing what they can do. And I think that's how a film like Mandy came about with Nick Cage in the lead. Mm-hmm. But like it's what's kind of fun and refreshing about it is there seems to be like a little bit of a lack of pretension about being Nick Cage.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, yeah, he's Nick Cage, he's Oscar winner, he's action hero from the 80s and 90s, like he could be in the same ballpark as Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone and those guys, a bit younger. But there's no pretension about that. He's like, oh, this is a young filmmaker willing to try something. Let's give it a whirl. Let's see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Let's roll the dice. And I kind of love that about him.
I respect the shit out of it. Like I think that it's something that's refreshing. Nick Cage in his career is beyond giving a shit. But I mean that in a good way. He's not phoning it in. He's not just trying to cash a paycheck.
Although he did do a movie called Paycheck. No, that was Ben Affleck.
Yeah, that was Ben. No.
Close.
But like he's the opposite end of the spectrum. I would say even if we want to go down this route, if on the religious side of things, a more enlightened person just wanting to do it, because he's literally trying to just do everything and give everything a shot. He doesn't think that, like, for instance, a ton of actors, and rightfully so, wouldn't take a project like Mandy because it's not on their trajectory.
Yeah.
He's beyond that. Whether you have to be an older actor to do that and really make it work, or even if not every actor, even like Bryan Cranston isn't doing Mandy. Like it's. You just
no disrespect to Mr. Cranston.
Oh no, not at all. What I'm saying is there are two paths to infamy in acting. One is cultivating, and this is outside of pure skill and craft. One is to cultivate your image, go for certain things, make sure you are cast as the it person in whatever thing for a while, and then you can transition to a different thing or reinvent yourself, etc. The cycle continues forever. Or you do what Nick Cage is doing right now, and you just do everything, and then you're known as the person that can do everything.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's been made a there's a fair amount of fun being poked at Nick Cage as the guy who never says no. And the thing you just said at the beginning as well, which is like he's paying off some debt or something like that.
Sure, but I think the interesting, you're always going to have haters, and I sometimes, myself included, am a bit of a Nick Cage hater. Like there's no question. Yeah. But what is truly amazing to me about him and his career is he doesn't give a shit about what I think, about what you think, about what anyone thinks. Yeah. He wants to try to do interesting stuff, and when you do throw yourself at a million projects, 90% of them are going to be kind of garbage. And even the 10% of them that are good might not be the best fit with your skill set, but you're going to eventually hit stuff like he has in the past that's been great.
To speak on that point, the thing here is that he released 7 movies in 2018.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 2017. It's been about 4 to 5 movies a year for the last
intense.
Yeah, for a while now, actually, probably since 2010. Even in 2009 he had 5 movies. So some of these are just voice parts, but
doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's that sort of spray and see what hits kind of thing. Honestly, I have a ton of respect for him for doing a movie like Mandy, which is, I think, what we should talk about, given that this is a review of Mandy. Yeah. To bring it back, we did get a review of Mandy from one of our listeners last week that we read in last week's fantastic episode with Simon Koss. We did Fahrenheit 11/9.
Which, side note, I actually, in the beginning of the thing, this is just me calling myself out, I actually mistakenly, after we intro the movie correctly, I do say Fahrenheit 9/11, I think, around the 2 or 3 minute mark, so apologies for that.
I don't think anyone's going to hold us to account.
I just, you
like to be professional.
I messed up. I like to be fucking professional.
Let's see what we're doing here.
Yeah. All right. In this room with a skeleton and an owl and a fucking Pachamari and some Reaper in a game.
So Stephen Press, again, we read this review out last week, wrote in his review on Mandy, and his review was this: too much style over too little substance. Honestly, stylistically, a derivative take on the heavy metal comic with a 5-minute 48-hour film festival script. And I think what he means there is like a script that was written in 5 minutes for the 48-hour film festival.
Sure.
Throwing a lot of cash and an unfeasibly long runtime for what it is, and Nicolas Cage. This sounds better than it actually is. Nothing new, nothing to see. Go watch Legion on TV. Does the art better and has a story. Okay, before we jump... no, tell us what Mandy is about.
Oh, of course. I would be absolutely happy to. Here we go. Mandy is set in the primal wilderness of 1983, where Red Miller, a broken and haunted man, hunts an unhinged religious sect who slaughtered the love of his life.
Okay.
Not wrong.
This is directed by Panos Cosmatos.
Yeah.
Whose previous film, Beyond the Black Rainbow, is a film I've seen.
Yeah.
I liked it stylistically, but it's not a film I particularly love.
Sure.
It has a very Stanley Kubrick 2001 kind of vibe to it, which I think you could say carries over into this film a little bit.
Yeah.
So this is his follow-up film. And something that I think... Watching the trailer, I saw just a couple of images from this film, and I was instantly like, I want to see what that guy's doing. I was curious after seeing his first film. To go into my initial thoughts about this, I think this... We had a conversation, I think, last week or a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about the movie Searching, where I think I kind of surmised that film as a film with flaws, but one that I liked more than I disliked. Right. One that I think worked better than I disliked. I think this is basically the same principle, but an inverse relationship to my like to dislike factor, which is that I really respected what this film was, what it was trying to do, how beautiful this film is. It is a gorgeous looking movie. And it is so stylistically out of the wheelhouse of almost anything happening in cinema today that I just you have to give it a lot of respect for being so unique, so singular, so much driven by the aesthetic choices of Panos Cosmatos, like of the stylistic things that he's interested in, like,
and Benjamin Loeb, I believe, is the
cinematographer. Yeah. So I really did respect the hell out of this movie, and I think it actually had a couple of really interesting ideas in it as well. That said, it's such a singular, one-note kind of film that I found myself, the longer it went on, the less and less I became interested in it, and I found that despite kind of respecting it, there was little there to latch onto to kind of make me wanna to think more about this movie. And we'll deal with that in spoilers, but I think this film has some interesting ideas about toxic masculinity, for example. It has some interesting aesthetic ideas. It has some beautiful design choices in it. This is one of the last scores by Johan Johansson, who died just this year.
Yeah.
So it's a beautifully created singular world, but not one that I kind of felt that there was much to explore outside what I had kind of seen.
I don't think I don't think this movie actually has a ton to say. I think this movie is stylized AF. I think the individual scenes and sequences from a visual and compositional and lighting standpoint are gorgeous.
Yeah.
But I don't think the film itself has a clear enough purpose or goal outside of let's make something look really trippy. Because what they do is they take a standardized revenge fantasy storyline that we've seen in A Tale as Old as Time, and basically ratchet that up through 11 and make you watch it through a lava lamp, and which is cool.
Yeah,
but at the same time, this is a film that in the beginning of it, when like the first 30 minutes, I was like, oh man, I'm going to be thinking about this for a long time. Like, what does this all mean? And like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And by the end of it, I was like, nothing. It means nothing. And whether or not that's true, because, a filmmaker, I'm sure, it has insight to this that I'm not getting from it, but it didn't interest me enough to go hunt for that.
Right.
The score was dope.
Yeah.
It reminded me a lot of, I know it was Johan Johansson's thing, but it reminded me a lot of my boy John Carpenter a little bit in certain spots, very synthy in moments.
Yeah.
I really dug the one part I felt like there was a real attention to detail was the way a cult works. Right. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts.
Yeah,
what? A cis white male listening to true crime podcasts?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Hot take. But I listen to a lot of Last Podcast on the Left, which is my absolute favorite. Shout out to those guys. And through listening to them over the years, I've kind of gathered like what specific type things from cult leaders like are realistic in behaviors that they tend to have. And Jeremiah, I think the guy's name was.
Yeah. Played by Linus Roach.
Yeah, he elicits almost every one of them. He both praises and then tears you down instantly, like a huge amount of praise to a follower, and then rips them another asshole, like sort of. And it's that is a consistent use of cultists, cult leaders, to sort of like keep you off your toes and want you to still like be loved and not quite know where you're going to stand with them.
Yeah,
there was that. There was the way that he dealt with. I'm trying to remember the other things. The way that he dealt with sort of like the scripture aspect of it and wanting to like make himself, basically talking himself up so much that he started to believe it. Even the parts in the mirror when he's like, tell me what to do, tell me what to do, tell me what to do.
Never doubt yourself.
And then
again.
never doubt yourself. Like there's just a ton sort of there. So I really liked those moments. Outside of that, I think this was kind of, this felt like, this is what I'll say, this felt like a dumb movie trying to look like a smart movie.
Yeah.
I
don't disagree with that.
And maybe I'm the dumb one for not getting what this film was trying to say, the bigger metatextual commentary on life, the universe, and everything. But I love looking for meaning in shit.
Yeah.
So even stuff, and look, we'll go back to sort of, Marvel-esque shit, right? I look for meaning in that stuff all the time because I think there's enough care there in those films that even if it's not saying something deep, they might be saying something very simple.
Yeah.
And if it's not blatant, I care enough about the product because it interests me to look for it deeper. This is something that it didn't grab me enough to bother looking for anything deeper than what it was showing me. What it was showing me was beautiful and terrifying. But I honestly, if we weren't having this conversation about the movie, I wouldn't have a conversation about the movie.
So this comes back to, we had a conversation a little while back about style versus substance, and I think that was in reference to our Speed Racer episode in terms of how style can be substance in that case. And I think the thing that is hard to dismiss in this case, which is where I don't disagree with anything you're saying, by the way. I think there is a difficulty, like there's a difficulty in recommending this film to people unless they have a really specific sort of passion about these kinds of movies. But the tricky thing here is that the style is so overwhelming and is so unique and is so connected to things that are happening on screen. Like there's this I think one of our listeners, Jonathan Blade, the Blade, Joe Blade, did say something along the lines of like, this is basically almost like a Clive Barker, Hellraiser type thing viewed through the lens of someone taking LSD and bath salts, heavy emphasis on the bath salts. And I don't disagree with that. Like, I think there is a sort of hallucinatory quality of this film that is beautifully integrated with its visual choices. The sequence where Jeremiah is talking directly to Mandy and we see her face superimposed with her.
That was awesome.
It's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And the sequence where like she's hallucinating because she's been stung by this like
the bug with the drugs.
Bug with the drugs. Yeah. Drug bugs.
Hashtag drug bugs.
I think and the time trails that are left behind there is really gorgeous.
The face thing also, another thing about cultists, they make sure that you start to see their thoughts as your thoughts.
Right, yeah.
Cult leaders always do that, and there's sort of like, and that's what sort of a direct eye contact or forcing cultists to look in a mirror with you. There's sort of things so that was very, again, true to cult leaders.
So, well, I loved, I guess basically my trajectory through this film was that I kind of loved it up until Mandy's death. And the reason is that I thought the scene where Jeremiah is giving his speech to Mandy about something along the lines of, and he said to me that you are not separate from all that is, and you are one, and therefore all that is yours, and therefore you can take it, was sort of an interesting commentary about like this entitled male, sort of an entitled cultist kind of leader, who's a failed musician, but has basically decided that everyone else is wrong except him. And has created a cult based around that. I thought all that stuff was really interesting. I thought the idea that they used actual demons of some description, or some kind, like a motorcycle gang that has taken too much LSD and has never come back and is like slowly morphed into these sort of like ethereal Clive Barker-esque creatures. All really cool stuff, really fascinating, really beautiful. But the second that Mandy dies and this becomes Nicolas Cage's film of revenge, that's the point at which the film became one note. And I thought the other thing about that is that that's also, it's such a old school kind of film. It felt very Death Wish, like
Yeah.
they even say in the movie, "You have a death wish," and it's set in 1983, Reagan era, Ronald Reagan era, sort of commentary is in the beginning when he's in the radio.
Oh yeah, about Americans don't like drugs and pornography.
Yeah, and that was kind of reflected in the cinema where
I nailed that Ronald Reagan impersonation.
Yeah, you did. It was pretty good. It was reflected in the cinema of the period again with films like Death Wish, where you had films that were outwardly pushing the boundaries of what could be done in film in terms of violence and gore and sex, because that was a sort of contrary to what was happening in the real world, or what was perceived to be happening in the world. Again, all really interesting stuff. But if you think about it in sort of the context of revenge films or seeking revenge films, there's not a lot of pleasure to be derived from the actual execution of one's nemesis or nemesi.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a lot of pleasure from that. Even when he crafts this metallic axe.
What the shit?
Again, beautiful, gorgeous, love the aesthetic, love the sort of look and feel of it.
It's like they watched the last season of Buffy.
Right.
Because there's a whole thing about a Slayer axe. It looks just like that, only not red.
It also felt like the heavy metal comics, as I think as Stephen Priest said as well. I loved all that, but there was no sense of escalation or questioning. And this is a year when you didn't review this film, but we reviewed it on this podcast. You were never really here.
Yep.
With Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Lynn Ramsey. And that is a revenge film that touches on exactly the same topics as all of this, like the idea of this failed masculinity, this idea of thinking that masculinity is about the savior of women, all that sort of stuff. And that movie goes out of its way to defy our expectations in that that model. And this is one that sort of sets up some of those expectations, with Mandy's kind of rejection of Jeremiah. But then just becomes like this male sort of revenge violence fantasy that isn't all that pleasurable.
No.
It's beautiful to look at. It's kind of fun seeing Nick Cage freak out at certain moments, but he doesn't go full Cage.
He does, but he does only in certain small parts.
Yeah.
And at this point, full Cage, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. It's because, and honestly, it goes straight back to doing 5 or 6 films a year.
Right.
If I think Nick Cage is a good actor.
Right. Yeah, I think he's a great actor.
Something that damages people thinking of him as a good actor is the Nick Cage freak out moments. Because when not used properly, and in this film, I don't think they're used properly, they come off as hokey or oh, there it is. There's the I'll be back of this film. You know what? It's just sort of catchphrasey. And it gets almost as cheesy as the Goblin cheddar mac and cheese commercial, which was one of my favorite parts of this movie.
But that was an odd sort of stab at humor in this movie that it was I was like, oh, I think that's funny, but not in the scene that it's in.
I didn't fully understand why. For those of you, you should watch it and figure this out. But after a horrific spoilers, Mandy dies. The Nick Cage goes back into his house that was previously, overrun with cultists, and the TV is on, and there's a commercial for. It looks like a cheesy '80s commercial, but it's a little bit twisted for Goblin cheddar mac and cheese.
It reminded me of those movies. Remember Ghoulies?
Yeah, and they look like Boglins, but it's goblins and mac and cheese like puppets, and it was just sort of
vomit mac and cheese.
They vomit mac and cheese into the bowl, and I was like, okay,
yeah.
And it was at that moment, again, not that I didn't think the commercial was funny, but it was at that moment I was like, I don't know if this movie has anything to say, because I think our thoughts kind of mirror Shahir. We were excited for the meaning and the exploration up until after Mandy died, and then after that. We had a funny commercial.
Yeah.
We had a Nick Cage freak out going full Cage in a bathroom.
Yeah.
We then just have him crafting weapons and going to people's places that we haven't seen before, nor do we care about.
We'd seen all those characters before, but
we hadn't seen the guy he gets the crossbow from. We hadn't seen.
Oh, we hadn't seen Bill Duke. Yeah, but
we hadn't seen the guy with the tiger.
Yeah, but that guy was explained by Bill Duke. So everyone that
was he?
Yeah, he was like the guy that makes the LSD.
Oh.
So that was who that character was. He was obviously, and he, I guess in the sort of the mythic quality of this film. He was the mage or the wizard or something like that had like been crafted this world that they existed in.
Sure.
And Bill Duke explains as well about the idea that the bikers had taken this LSD and had never come back and had slowly morphed into this thing. I thought it would have been interesting if, for example, what eventually happens is Nick Cage slowly morphs into one of those characters because he takes.
He licks random drug mayonnaise out of a jar at the fucking biker's house.
Which I think is the LSD.
Yeah, oh, it is.
Yeah.
It's like literally Pearl's Jam. Like that's what it is. And
is that what you call it? Pearl's Jam?
Well, so the band Pearl Jam, there's a bunch of rumors about why they were Pearl Jam, and it was
about that.
It was his aunt Pearl actually used to make some sort of mayonnaise or something like that, and it was Pearl's Jam. I don't know. It's the whole weird thing. I don't even know if that's just a rumor that I'd heard from one point in time, so I just made the reference. But so in conjunction, even before, let's back up a little bit. Even before, when I was still on board with this film, before Mandy's untimely fire moment,
death by fire,
incineration.
Yeah.
The writing of this was on a knife's edge for me.
Yeah.
The line I said in the beginning, everything the cultist said, really outside of Jeremiah, even some of the stuff Jeremiah said, but he's supposed to be a crazy cultist, so it was kind of fine. But like every character spoke like they were in a cult anyway.
Yeah.
And it felt like what I would have thought the pinnacle of like deep, like dark writing would have been, like my off year before college.
Right, yeah, there's a student film quality to this whole thing.
Yeah, and it's like every line was like the most just dripping with wanting you to think whatever fucking drivel they were talking about had like some deep purpose and dark meaning. And look, Lovecraft, this movie ain't like the lines are there and the verbs and the adjectives are being said, but in no way does any of it ever come off as meaningful. It comes off as hokey.
I think the stuff around Jeremiah is interesting.
It's
that is me reaching to say it. The thing that's difficult that I think both of us are struggling with this film,
right,
is you can't dismiss it. Like you can't just go, "This is a bad movie."
No.
You know what I mean? And I think, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a very specific kind of movie and has a very specific audience in mind, and it is, people seem to be enjoying it. I just think that narratively it doesn't quite connect both its astonishing visuals and its thematic concerns at the first half of the movie with the end of the movie.
Here's the deal. Here's how I tell if I won't even say good movie or bad movie. I didn't like this movie overall, and the reason is I think I can boil it down to this: could I have enjoyed the style of thing that this is if it was boiled down to like a 7-minute music video? Yep. I would have gotten the exact amount of enjoyment out of it. So why spend 2 hours? Right. Like but also, let's keep in mind, I am someone who I drink, but I don't do drugs.
Right.
A lot of my friends that I've seen, on Twitter or whoever, have, that do recreational, mind-altering things, are eating this shit up, and I guarantee you they didn't see it sober.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine that this could probably be a transcendent experience if you had some sort of chemicals coursing through you at the time. But I don't think that is a lauded craft point of a film. I don't like. I feel like, I don't know. I enjoy real dumb shit when I'm drunk, but that doesn't make the dumb shit good.
Right.
Like, so I don't know. Again, good and bad is wrong in this case.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it because I felt like it was like if this was jam on toast, the jam was spread too thin and the toast was like olive loaf and burnt. I was just like, like the jam's kind of good and I can power through this olive loaf, but man, wish there was more jam.
So let's try and break this down a little bit clearer, because I think the film operates on a level that is kind of mythic in some way. Like it kind of escalates the thing that's also difficult about this is the style is so overwhelming and so powerful and very well executed.
Yeah.
That narrative issues don't necessarily apply. Like it's difficult to like say, well, it doesn't make sense that the crossbow was here, and it doesn't make sense that the axe was here. None of that stuff really matters.
I stopped paying attention to that. Look, Nicolas Cage can warp to the perfect vantage point for a crossbow as quick as anybody wants. I don't care.
Yeah.
He knows exactly where everything is. I don't care. This read like an actual mythological, like, and then the person was here, and you're like, cool.
Yeah.
That's not something that I'm going to hold against this movie.
No.
If I wanted to poke logical holes into here, get me the fucking dart gun.
Yeah. The logic holes don't necessarily apply to this movie, and I think the style kind of helps it do that. Because like the end of the film is basically in a tunnel. The church that is being built is like this sort of red illuminated tunnel inside a canyon somewhere, and it makes no sense how they got there or what they're doing there. Yada yada yada. But like it operates on that sort of like Jodorowsky kind of Alejandro Jodorowsky kind of level where substantive ideas are pushed through style, so the church image being the sort of pyramid kind of ties and connects to like this whole idea of the triangle and triptych that Jeremiah is kind of like about anyway.
There's two moons in the sky at the end.
Yeah. And I kind of, again, I have a lot of respect for that because I think it takes a lot of chutzpah to do that with a big movie star in your movie. And it requires a lot, like from the movie star, for example, so having someone like Nicolas Cage kind of going, yeah, this is, like we're going to be fighting demons.
I think we determined, though, that it doesn't take a lot for Nick Cage to say yeah to that. So I'm not going to give props on that. You give Nicolas Cage anything and then he's like, cool, great.
But here's the thing, is that this is not a small production either.
No.
So convincing a lot of people to go along with this really unique singular vision, I think takes a lot of skill, and it takes a lot to not be, nothing feels diluted from the point of view of like the vision of the director. Like I don't think there's nothing in this that says this was not what the director intended. Like everything feels very much like this is what I intended to make.
Yes.
Like it or lump it, this is what it is.
Like it or lump it.
Yeah, I know. We're going right back to that was probably 1997.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, you remember that?
Like it or lump it.
What was that? The Presidents of the United States, lump?
Okay, lump sat alone in a buggy marsh, totally emotionless except for her heart.
I used to always say like it or lump it. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's my singular vision. Maybe that's my singular world.
I think we got to take some drugs.
So, and then when it, when it stretches out into this area of the myth, there's animated sequences in this which suggest that Mandy is this sort of metaphysical presence in the world. There's this.
Do they suggest that though?
I think the film visually suggests that.
I think they suggest that in his dreams.
She's there in the car with him at the end, like staring at him. He's freed her. There's an interesting thing with that story that she tells at the beginning about the abuse, like her father, like bringing those birds in a sack, and then everyone, stabbing, smashing them with a crowbar. And essentially, Nick Cage kind of takes that role towards the end where he's like smashing her enemies through a crowbar. So it's kind of there's this, but again. The other thing that I really like about this film, and it's something that I think I'm drawn to as well, is that there's a lot of room to breathe in this movie. There's for the audience to kind of inject their own interpretation. Like no one is explaining exactly how this world works or how the mythology of it works or why it looks the way it does or anything like that. It just does look like that. And I like that open air kind of feel to it. Like I like that sense of being able to breathe through a movie and think about it in my own terms.
So in that way, the pacing of this film, let's even go with the pacing of the editing. Ton of long shots. Listeners of this show normally know that I don't particularly like long hanging, lilting, zooming in and out shots in my movies. I don't generally like that. Up until this point, didn't notice it. Therefore, from a cinematography standpoint, it worked.
Yeah.
It gave you the correct amount of emotional gravitas, where other movies I'll be like, come on, like just fucking move. And this movie, for all of my dislike of it, I guess, I was never like, is it over yet?
Right.
Because there was always something new visually for me to look at.
Right.
I don't think. Again, I feel like I don't want to insult it more, but like I do feel like this is a movie that's pretending to be smarter than it is. This is the classmate that didn't quite do the homework but read the cliff notes and was like, da, 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 da. Like it's because I think they do kind of explain exactly why everything looks the way it is. It's a very drug-induced thing. Every time a character it has an interaction with a substance, the look of the film changes. Even when characters aren't on it, that's the sort of most normal stuff until they hit a dream state.
It's also but it's not explained by characters telling you what's happening. It's
except Duke in the
well, he's not explaining the look and feel of the film. He's just he's giving. I think he does enough to kind of give you some context. Like,
sure.
And it feels like I don't know if this was the case, and I don't think it's the case, but it feels like that was a scene that was inserted because if it wasn't there, the movie would just be cuckoo bananas. Like, I mean, you need that scene to like hold together.
Here's the question though. And now I'm just going to be devil's advocate. Does that scene weaken the argument of this is just how this world looks? Because you literally have a full scene that is just exposition as to why. Like, if you really wanted to go down that, and I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just posing the question.
Right.
If you wanted to go down this whole thing, like, you wouldn't need an explanation of why the bikers are like that. You wouldn't need an explanation of, oh, there's this guy that makes all this bad LSD. Like,
I think it's the injection of the right amount of exposition to kind of help us along. But even I don't think it's giving us a full explanation of why the world is the way the world is.
I kind of think it does.
I think it's just giving us enough information to help us along for the second half of the movie. But so I think everything that I was just talking about in terms of that, visual space and like the idea that the visual cues are so broad and mythic and there's this sort of circular logic to the film and it's so insular, that's all me praising the things that I liked about the film. Inevitably, I like you once the film became...
No, I like you too.
Well, yeah, I like you a lot, man. Once the film became Nicolas Cage dispatching enemies, I found that the film was kind of very one note. And again, not pleasurable and not with much to say beyond... this is a revenge story, and I think I think that's a real shame, given how kind of open and interesting the first half was, and the sort of negative trajectory on it is it's such a classic male revenge story in a world where and in a world that doesn't. It should be saying something more about that if you're going to do it.
See, to the point where I don't even think that I was interested that you brought the toxic masculinity thing into it, because I don't think this movie actually functions as a commentary on toxic masculinity. I think it uses toxic masculinity in the same way all of these revenge movies do. I don't think anywhere it gave any sort of commentary on that it's a problem other than, oh, villains tend to be toxic and masculine.
I think it the problem there isn't, and this is our searching conversation again, but it's a case of execution for me. I think it, and your point of like, it's the movie that wants to be smarter than it actually is kind of thing. I think it wants to be that, and it has some inklings of that, but I don't think it executes it very well. And I think the problem is that Nicolas Cage's character doesn't embody that as, there's no strong theme through line kind of connecting the first half and the second half of this movie. And that's where the failure of the film is. Like, it doesn't really land or connect.
Because he doesn't defeat them other than using his own sort of rage, toxic masculinity to beat the other people. Like, so yeah, I just feel like if that was something they were going for, it falls.
And I can see the thing about that as well is I don't want to be like a stickler for like, oh, the movie has to be about a singular theme.
Of course not.
Like movies can just be pleasurable in the way that, like, for example, Robert Rodriguez's film Desperado is a real throwback film, but like engages in the pleasure. Unfortunately, this film, outside of the aesthetic pleasure, is not particularly innovative or pleasurable. And like, I don't find any of the for example, the man landing on the sort of second penultimate henchman landing on his chainsaw and like bludgeoning to death. There's no sort of
don't care
horror sort of extrapolated, like over the top kind of pleasure in that.
It also felt a lot of the bigger fight scenes, the chainsaw fight, the fight in front of the burning car between some of these Hellraiser bikers.
Yeah.
The visual trick in all of the action sequences in this movie gets old fast. And that visual trick is beautifully lit and smoked backgrounds and silhouette.
Yeah.
And that's great. But I also don't Like
The
it's not,
choreography of those scenes was actually pretty poor.
it was fine. It was serviceable. I mean,
It's
you're having a chainsaw sword fight. I
Yeah.
don't know what.
I don't know, but I guess that's like you could argue the thing about Kill Bill, for example, that works is that it takes the sort of and this film is calling back those other movies through the Reagan, the inclusion of being 1983, through the inclusion of the phrase "death wish." Like it's making mention of those kinds of films, and I think the style embodies like a sense of someone who loves those kinds of movies, and that's what the
Right.
film is. But it's not like actually taking that sort of idea of the vengeance film and sort of having fun with it. It seems to just be executing
It's
it.
having fun with it by executing it. It's not doing anything with it. It's
Yeah,
not
like
doing
for
any-
example, scenes in Kill Bill where you're like, oh, he loves these kinds of movies,
Yeah.
and he wants to like have fun with that idea.
Yeah.
Like the fight scenes have this sort of like beautiful artistic choreography to them, and they feel like someone who wants to take the idea and escalate it into something else. I think that's the real problem. The other side of it though is like I again, the vision was so singular, the ideas were so cool. I was like, I kind of want to see this director be given some other material where he can infuse this style on somebody else's material.
I feel like this is something where it's like, so I know how food analogies have just become my kind of thing.
Your go-to.
This film is fluff, and I don't mean that as in nothing in it is meaningful and negligent, and you shouldn't think about it or whatever. What I'm saying is the actual food fluff. Have you ever had fluff, like a fluffer nutter? Like it's basically like half melted marshmallow you put on sandwiches.
I've had candy floss.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
Okay, like you go to the circus and stuff, and they candy floss.
Candy? You mean cotton candy?
Cotton candy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Cool candy
There's a
floss.
cultural touch point we're going to have to come back to. No. So fluff is basically comes in a jar,
Yeah.
and it's called fluff, and you make peanut butter and fluff sandwiches. You can put it as sort of like you should never eat a spoonful of fluff by itself. It's just
You heard it here first.
it's
gentlemen.
it's not worth it. Let me tell you from personal experience. This movie is the food item fluff,
Yeah.
and the style of it even in that sense. So I would love to see what amazing combinations that you could put with other things.
Yeah.
Different writer,
know-
different other stuff. Yeah.
You know what I don't know why I thought this, but there have been working on a Masters of the Universe film for like ever right now to try and put
Yeah.
like Masters of the Universe into context for this current generation. I think the rights have just reverted back to Mattel or something like that.
Great.
But people have been trying to make a Masters of the Universe movie. When I watched this, I was like, I would kind of love to see this guy's take on Masters of the Universe. Like I think it'd be weird, but I think that's what I would want to see from Masters of the Universe.
That would be a nice, interesting take rather than just remaking something again.
exactly. And I was like,
Though, hold on, half of this, it's 100% true. The other half is this film is a standard revenge film.
yeah, and
You want to take the style part.
I want to take what the director does stylistically and their vision and apply it to a Masters of the Universe.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first thing I thought of, but I'm sure there are millions of ways.
Have
to
you
do it.
seen? You said you saw his other film, so you're confident that this is the director's vision and not the cinematographer's sort of like.
this is
okay,
his vision.
okay. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know. Here's sort of because we're getting to the end of this. I had sort of a question for you because I wanted to figure out like I was trying to dissect meaning as best I could until I decided I didn't care. But one thing that kept coming back was the tiger.
Okay,
The tiger in the cage, the one on his jacket,
On his shirt,
on his shirt,
Yeah.
and then it was by the moons at the end,
Yeah.
and I was like, what do you think the tiger represents here? Because I wasn't quite sure.
I think it's open to interpretation. So it's only seen in the context of Nicolas Cage. It's never seen in the context of Mandy or Jeremiah. So I think the tiger represents like a sort of pent up rage that, and like we've seen at the very beginning of the film that Nicolas Cage is perhaps is sort of a placated man, a man who has like discovered his comfort and his safety. Like he even says at the beginning of the film, maybe we should leave this place, and she's like, no, we should never leave this place. And we see them kind of interacting in this way that is entirely non-confrontational. It is like just this loving, safe place that this couple inhabit. And then he's wearing that tiger shirt once he makes the decision that he's going to enact revenge. Once he saves himself from the barbed wire and he goes back to the bathroom and he drinks alcohol. Remember, at the very beginning of the film, he rejects a beer.
Yeah.
Like someone offers him a beer. So there's probably some suggestion.
I don't know.
There's a light suggestion that he may have been that he may have, like rejected all drugs and alcohol and hallucinogens and then is like re-emerging there. And I think the tiger being let out of the cage is literally that metaphor of the rage being let out of the cage, out of the Nicolas Cage. I think
he already got his rage out, though. That's the thing. Like, timing-wise, that doesn't make sense because he already did that. He doesn't do anything different in the church pit.
But that's where we see those two images, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so I think that's the way I would interpret it. But it's open to interpretation, and it would require a couple more viewings to like really like craft something there. But it's clear that it's a direct. It's a very deliberate choice to use the tiger imagery in those sequences to tell a story.
I think it's a deliberate choice, but again, it feels like something that is crafted well enough to make us go back and look for meaning, but
I mean, how do deliberate choices work?
Deliberate choices mean, so okay, if I was the filmmaker and I'm like, okay, this I want to, after I've written my script or after I've come up with whatever I'm doing, the tiger is going to represent, like, let's say your interpretation is 100% correct, that it represents Nicolas Cage and it represents the rage being let out of the cage, as it were, and yada yada yada. So I would build my imagery around that. And the moments where it happens in the story to have that make the most sense. Here, it doesn't do that. It again, maybe chronology is not something this film cares about, but like the times when he finally meets a tiger in the cage and it's let out of the cage, the emotional tiger or the rage tiger has already been let out of the cage. We don't need to see that at this point because it's already happened. So if that's him and that's happening now, then what happened before? Like, my point is this.
Right.
I don't think that if the director has a specific thing that tiger, say, represents, it is not implemented in a clear enough way to make something the definitive way. I think, because I've done this in writing before, where if I want people to think about something, but I don't really have an answer for what exactly it's supposed to be, you give enough information to have people come up with interpretations. There's nothing wrong with that, but when that's sort of outside of a visual style, all you're offering throughout a very standardized film, that's when you lose me.
Right. So, and I would agree with you that there is a sort of an approach to thematic visual implementation that like some filmmakers use really well. So the example I'm thinking about is 2001: A Space Odyssey, the use of circular global imagery. The idea of circles continually turning over, which reflects the idea that the civilization continues and rotates around and moves in circular fashions. So there's a connection between the thematic and the visuals, and it plays together, and it evolves as the film goes on.
Sure.
I think we've already established that the problem here is that the film doesn't evolve past the point at which Mandy dies, and unfortunately, that's a sort of failure in the narrative stuff. I think the imagery again, but the imagery is so striking and powerful and works that you can interpret it. And if you the thing about interpretive analysis as well is that it is in the eye of the beholder in some ways, as long as you can provide evidence to support your reading of it. And I think for me, there's enough in the tiger imagery and the idea that he rejects the drink and then goes full alcohol, like alcohol inducing at the moment of crisis, and he's wearing that tiger thing. There's enough there for me to kind of say it. I don't think it's the strongest thing in the world.
Okay.
But there's enough there. The thing I was sort of more curious about is the way in which the sort of iconic, almost Norse mythology was used, and the way that like the book that she's reading, the Secret of the Serpent, or the Seeker of the Serpent's Eye, or something like that.
Sure.
And the way that the final image of the film transposes the sort of mythic, sort of two moons / kind of alien planet. I was curious as to how that worked, not being too steeped in that sort of fantasy mythological lore, and also the way in which the the sort of animated sequences play. I think there is a potential reading in this film to suggest that the second half of this film is Mandy's fantasy of how her life could be redeemed after her death, because we cut back to these like animated sequences, and there's this one in particular where she pulls out some sort of stone or orb from a carcass of an animal and holds it up in the air and kind of like looks at it triumphantly. I think it's potential. It would take a few more viewings to kind of see it, but I was kind of, again, I don't think it's the strongest idea. It's not as strong as, for example, in You Were Never Really Here, the way in which that film goes out of its way to dissatisfy the audience expectation of masculine violence. I think there's the thing here is that there's interesting ideas really available to you to kind of interpret, and I think you could make a kind of interpretation of it if you did the work. So those are just some suggestions.
True. I guess going into my sort of final thought then at this point is the film didn't interest me enough to do the work.
Right.
A film like Mother interested me enough to do the work.
Right.
I walked out of that film with one thought. I went and watched it again, did some research, came out with another thought. I've seen that movie 3 times now, and each time I come out with sort of a different, and I feel like not a fully different interpretation, but like I'm actually honing in on what I believe that film is trying to say, and I can argue that very, very solidly. Even if I'm wrong, I think I have a good base bedrock. This is a film I don't think really you'd ever be able to actually do that with, because it plays it fast and loose. I will say again, visuals, stunning. But I would have loved to see this as like a Gunship, the band Gunship music video, and just like called it a day at like 12 minutes.
Right.
I think, honestly, there's a supercut out there. Someone make that to a Gunship song. That would be dope. It was written like a goth college student wrote it, and I should know because I was one.
Yeah.
So that didn't do me any favors. It did hit on very accurately how cults operate, even outside of using an ocarina to summon LSD Hellraiser bikers. Which was neat, but I don't know what these bikers just wait outside to, again, that's a logical problem, but like wait outside to hear an ocarina and then they come riding out like cool. I was hoping that they were actually
the thing that bugged you, not the nails in the head and the knife penis.
The whole thing that is again that's me nitpicking even when I said that's not even worth it. It was just something that like at that moment in the film you didn't know if they were supernatural or not, because the whole thing is a little bit supernatural. It did come off as kind of a dumb power fantasy at the end.
Yeah.
It's just a man going and just exacting vengeance in interesting and weird and fucked up ways to people that have wronged him and his loved ones. It's like, I was trying to think of like analogies of like what this film is like, but it's like Evil Dead without the humor.
Yeah.
It's like Cabin in the Woods with nothing to say. It's like Drive Angry without like the self-aware joy of it. And when I look at my other options of where to get the pieces that I think this movie is reaching for me to get in a much easier and much more enjoyable package, I will always go to those other things.
Right.
However, is this something in one aspect, particularly the visuals, that I found innovative and interesting and beautiful in parts? Yes. Is it something that I can wholeheartedly recommend to more than 3% of my movie-going friends? No.
Yeah. I don't disagree with anything you said there. I think, it's a similar boat, which is that I think it's a beautiful, sort of astonishing vision, but one that has not too much substantive quality behind it, which I think echoes Steven's review as well. But to me, the vision, I always appreciate a vision being so unique and so out of the box and doing it with a big movie star. And
sure.
I love that, and I love the fact that this film has a lot of space to breathe. I don't recommend it highly to a lot of people. I think, there was a case we talked about, or a film we talked about, where the director said, I want to make a film for one guy who loves it,
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those cases where like the people that love this film will love this film. the people who are kind of casually trying to find a movie will most likely not enjoy it, and the people who don't have leanings towards this type of movie will probably hate it.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a unique take on that, but I enjoyed that I saw it. I enjoyed that I saw it on the big screen. I enjoyed that I was able to see a movie that's playing on the big screen in my home theater. I enjoyed the aesthetics of it. It's the kind of film where I would probably reference this when I'm making a project from now on as remember with the time the sort of hallucinatory color shifts in Mandy, because the vision is so striking.
You can use it as your cinematography reel reference.
Yeah, all day. So I think it works in that respect, and I liked it on that respect. I don't think there's a lot to go there, and a lot more to chew on this, and it's unfortunate that is the case. But I also like this director. I like that his vision is so unique. I would like to see what he does with somebody else's material.
I like that idea.
Yeah, and I would be, and I like that the movie exists. Like I've read some reviews where people are like, "Why make this movie? What are you trying to say?" And I'm like, "No. I like that this is such a weird oddity, and it's so strange, and it's so thing, and it doesn't work. But I like that someone, pitched at this thing and was able to pull it together. Like, it's got to be clear here. There's a distinction between films that fail because there's a failure of craftsmanship. This is not one of those films.
Right.
This is a failure of depth of thematic weight beyond the craftsmanship.
And that's a failure of connectivity of craftsmanship, not necessarily craftsmanship itself. Like, for instance, there are pieces of craftspersonship that this movie excels at, but there's other parts that it doesn't. And and most of it is actually the connective tissue between all of the things.
I guess what I mean by that also is like there's no sense that this is not the film that this director wanted to make.
Sure.
That's what I want to, it feels very much like, for better or for worse, this is the film. Like it or lump it.
So here we go. But it is a film. You're calling it a film. Because sometimes movies that you have said similar things about
give me an example.
in the past, I believe Jurassic World,
right,
you called not a film.
Yeah, and I stand by that.
We don't have the time to get back into that, but I'm just curious. I'm slowly gathering my Shahir algorithm of what is considered a film is slowly always building on itself. And I don't want to get into that conversation right now, and we'll sort of come back to it. But I just wanted to ask: so you think this Mandy is a film? Which I agree, but I also think Jurassic World is a film. But that's beside the point.
Well, if you're going to inject your final thought on that. We should have a different conversation about abstractions and the idea of how to use abstractions.
What do you mean? You mean
how to use an abstraction like this is not a film in the context of a conversation about movies?
Do you just mean like a noun?
No. That's a broader conversation to have.
Let's roll it into something else. I'm sorry to bring it up. I was just making sure. Anyway, this has been the only podcast about the film Mandy. Shahir, when you are not just dipping your hand full bore into a jar of Pearl's Jam and slathering it on your face and tongue, where can folks find you?
I'm so sweaty. I'm so like lathered in goop at all times on my website, which is enough incentive for you to never visit my website.
You keep saying that, man.
Don't ever go there.
But I think people would go.
No, never go there. Never go there.
What is the site they shouldn't go to?
There are hidden crevices in that website that you should never, ever visit. www.shahirdaud, SHAHIRDAUD.com. Matt, the crevices of your body that are contoured perfectly to fit the shape of a metallic axe could be found where?
My weapons closet is at MATTHEWKROL.com for my life and works. Also, Skeleton, the number 4 at PREZ on Instagram or Emperor MSK on Twitter. Also, you can check out my voice and some wonderful animation styles of the Extra Credits team at Extra Credits on YouTube. I believe we just released something about the metaphor is the meaning, which is actually kind of could be connected to this. We do it with video games, but we have some comic and some cinema examples in there as well. We're also doing something on quantum computing, continuing that series, and we're wrapping up. We got 2 more episodes, I think, of the Majapahit series about Indonesia and all that jazz, which is really fun. And you can always get a hold of us with all of your metaphorical meaning questions, or just if you have something you'd like us to talk about. We're not taking official requests yet. That's still coming. But if you want to sort of, be like, hey, maybe you should do this, you could email us at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com or tweet at us at onlymoviepod. Also, check out the 360 video that we will be putting up of this episode, a part of it. It's only going to be like four-ish minutes or something like that. It's not the whole thing because that would get old. But Shahir did it once before. They're super fun. If you look at the last one we did, it's up on our Facebook and up on our YouTube. It is so cool that you put in like all this extra stuff. Like if you rotate around the room.
There's pressure now. I got to find extra stuff to put in this episode.
It'll be good.
It'll be Nicolas Cage popping up out of a corner.
Great with kryptonite. It was very cool and I really dug it. So check that out as well. Next week, Shahir, we got some options for next week. We haven't talked about this.
No, like what?
So here we go. Let's go down the list of things that I'm interested in seeing.
Okay.
And you can and I don't even think that these are things that are maybe warrants conversation. But here we go. Okay. A Star is Born. For whatever reason, that trailer gives me the feels hard.
That is
and
the
I've been
awards contender for the year right now.
And I've been singing that Gaga song that I only know like 3 lines from. Then we have Venom coming soon. I don't know. Then we have
Venom. Here's the thing about Venom.
Yeah.
Venom feels like to me a film where I want to see just kind of the critical consensus before I decide whether to spend some money.
I think we already know what the critical consensus.
What if it's a surprise, amazing film? What if it's a huge surprise?
Then fuck.
And we'd be surprised.
Yeah, then we'd be surprised. Bad Times at the El Royale.
I'm very interested in Bad Times at the El Royale just because of the cabin in the woods.
Yeah, I'm psyched for that ever since you told me that. Old Man and the Gun.
Yep, the reason I'm interested in that is David Lowery.
Okay.
David Lowery made one of the best films that I saw last year, which was A Ghost Story. And this is his follow-up to that. It's also not supposedly the final film from Robert Redford. So
okay, so would you say it's safe to bet for our listeners that we'll do one of those 4 films next week?
We also have a couple of other things that we're supposed to be doing that are in our pipeline.
True. Don't talk about our pipeline on the air.
Yeah, if you want to lay some pipe. onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com and at onlymoviepod. I'm not going to say it again.
Stop.
That was gross.
No.
That was gross, even for me.
We're going to go now, I guess.
Ugh. I love it. I made it so creepy.
You literally just ended this on how I felt at multiple times while watching Mandy.
Slathered. We were slathered.
Ugh.
So slathered.
Who wants candy?
Dripping slather.
See you next week.